Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of OPE. I am Iowa Joe, and this is the season finale of my off-season, off-topic episodes. We will be getting back to Packer content here in the next week or so. Training camps are rolling around. I'm sure Mike's ready to talk about football here pretty soon. But this is the season finale of this off-season, off-topic, and I figured I'd go big and get a really good special guest on and I sent out email after email to people, and this is the one person who I don't know if you want to say won the lottery or whatever to appear on, but I am talking with Bennett from Cooking with Congress on TikTok. I looked, and you have a pretty big following, 203,000 people so far on TikTok. Bennett, thanks for joining me on today's show.
Yeah, no problem, Joe. Thanks for having me. I was excited to talk to someone who is interested in this and also a football fan as well. I am from Pittsburgh originally, so I remember going to training camps when I was a kid, and I got a bunch of like footballs in my garage signed by like Alan Faneca and other Steelers stalwarts. So happy to be on the show today. Thanks for having me.
And that was I was made aware that you were a Steeler fan, and we kinda had that little moment where I was told that there might be a little resentment from Super Bowl 45, but we were able to get through that.
Yeah, we made it through so far. Oh man, that was a tough. That was a great game, though. Great game. No hard feelings. I like the Packers.
And I gotta say that, even though he's kinda flipped his lid a little bit, I gotta give it to Aaron Rodgers, and, he'll always I always believe the same thing with all my teams, once a Packer, always a Packer. And he did a lot of great things, including Super Bowl 45 for the Packers. So I will say this though, no takes backsies. He's yours now. We're not taking him back.
Oh man, yeah, he's either taking us to a Super Bowl or to the number one pick next year. So we'll see.
I just gotta say, take care of my boys out there though. You got Caleb Johnson and Yaya Black from
Mm,
Hawkeyes. So you know, don't be surprised that if Caleb is probably starting for at running back pretty
I
soon.
hope
He's
so.
he's the real deal. But that's not what we're here for. Maybe we can get you back during week 8 when the Packers do play Pittsburgh this year, so we can get you on and talk then. But we are here to talk about your channel, Cooking with Congress. And I guess the first question I've got for you is what got you into wanting to do the Cooking with Congress and the stuff that you do on I was going to say YouTube, on TikTok?
Yeah, sure. I'm on YouTube and Instagram as well. I've just hit like 500,000 followers across all the platforms this past week. So I celebrated by eating like Ulysses S. Grant, which involved like 7 cigars in one day. It's sort of celebration, sort of punishment. What got me into it? So I was always into like politics as a kid, and specifically like the president as a figurehead always fascinated me. When I was 6, I wanted to be a chef and the president of the United States at the same time. This is probably the best version of that that I could ever accomplish, and so I always had that within me. I love the cooking side of things. I love presidential history. I just think they're like a fascinating group of maniacs and humans too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I started this project as a blog back in 2018 after I got this really cool, weird cookbook from my wife's grandmother back in the day. She's since passed, actually, but it was the South Dakota Centennial Cookbook, 100-year anniversary of the state of South Dakota, and it was chock full of these weird recipes like happy ham and like beef with like strange sauces I'd never heard before, wine jelly, raw onion soup, and all this other stuff that had come from Congress people, senators, Ronald Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush. I just thought it was so funny, and I was like, well, I gotta make some of this stuff, and so I started making them. They were disgusting, which is so much fun to me. And then I went down the rabbit hole of finding more and more cookbooks like this, especially from the past, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and thousands of recipes from politicians. And most of them were pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, we have a bunch of old school cookbooks too, because long story short, my dad was a late child for his parents, so My grandma was born in 22 and my grandpa was born in 13. So we have like a lot of old school cookbooks going through the house. And, a lot of them are the church cookbooks that you would get
Hmm.
and all that stuff. And we still use some of the recipes out of it, but then you go through and look at some of that stuff. It's like, I don't know if I want to try that or not. So, but I did watch the one on Grant, and I do have to say, how are the lungs feeling? After all that, and
They've fully recovered. I usually like go on a pretty long hike the day after I eat like a president because it's a lot of calories. I did not do that this time. I had to take one extra day just to make sure I was able to like do the hike successfully and not stop midway through and get helicoptered out or something like that. So the lungs are feeling better now, and I had some very concerned fans who are like, "You don't have to do this." And I was like, "It's just one day over the course of my life. It's okay." Like my grandfather smoked for like 45 years and like still lived into his 80s. So I will be okay for one day. But I definitely did get nauseous.
so I guess that's another question I have. Obviously you're in pretty decent shape, but some of these cooking withs or these recipes are pretty hearty. How do you balance out that? Do you like go on certain fasts after eating? Obviously we'll talk about one here pretty quick about Taft, but you know, how do you balance keeping in shape with a lot of the recipes and that you're dealing with?
Yeah, I have to stay active, and my off days are pretty tight. I mean, not restrictive in terms of like I still get to eat, great
Right.
food. But I'm very thoughtful about what I'm putting in my body 5 days a week, so I don't have to really think about it on those 2 days when I'm just eating like a completely different person from history or from around the country. So I've had a lot of people clamoring for like, what do you eat in a day exactly? Like, do the version like eating like America, but for you, we want to see it. So I'll be doing that soon. But it's not going to be thrilling because like so it's coffee in the morning and a lot of like boring like Greek yogurt with blueberries and stuff on it. It's just to kind of counterbalance the fact that sometimes I have to eat like 7 dinners in a day.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I'm a bigger guy, and I've been on kind of a weight loss journey thing too, and I feel it a lot of times too, where it's like, okay, you got to be good for 5 6 days. You can have that one day where you can do a little bit of this, but you got to stay strict with it on the rest of the days. And I even find that it's hard because it's like, I don't want to do this. I just want to eat my, pizza or my junk or stuff over here. It's like, no, you gotta live longer than 40. You gotta do something. And
It's
but
so tough too because like there's all those stories. You talk to people who are like 112, like how'd you do it? They're like, well, one cigar every day, a lot of red meat. You're like, what? This okay? Like so there's I always I never want to be too precious with it because I also want to enjoy food, and
right,
so if I'm just like eating purely for efficiency, I would get bored after a while. So I still like, I have a family, I have like a wife and daughter. So I like to eat with them at least, 5 days a
yeah,
week. And I don't want to just be like, all right, you guys are eating like delicious, like pasta and, beautiful side dishes, maybe a casserole. And I have my sauteed chicken, sauteed in zero oil with pepper on it, like, so I do try to not be a maniac about any of it either.
right. And there is a good balance. Not to turn this into a diet thing, but there is a good balance. And I've talked to a lot of nutritionists and I've talked to a lot of different people, and they say, you can have what you want, you just got to do it in moderation, and don't overload on it and be mindful of certain things. And of course, nowadays it's more about your protein intake than it is about anything else. And uh, most recently, I talked to a nutritionist, and they were like, you need to hit about 90 grams of protein per meal. So I was like, "Okay, that seems reasonable. Yeah, that no problem. I do that." And then when you actually sit down and start going through, it's like, this is almost impossible.
It's insane. If you skip, if one meal a day, you're like, maybe I could have not just like 2 pounds of chicken. Like, sorry, that's not gonna work. So you have to somehow integrate 2 pounds of chicken into your cereal this morning.
So yeah, it's crazy, but Uh, so obviously you had the one cookbook that you said you got from your wife's grandma that had a lot of those politician cookbook or recipes in. Where do you get a lot of your other ones, or do you is it just a lot of Google searches, or have you managed to come? I know when I did a small search one time that like the Library of Congress or some of the presidential libraries have some, have like family cookbooks or whatever you can get, but where do you get a lot of your recipes from?
Yeah, presidential libraries are great. A huge resource, especially for the eating like a president days. For me, I'll call and talk to them and see what I can get information wise. I have like behind me there's bar stuff, but there's also the library, which is like 45 different cookbooks, all community cookbooks like that. So there's congressional club cookbooks, which a lot of them are actually the wives and partners of the senators and congressmen over time, but eventually it mixed in the actual representatives. And really, like it's analog though. That's kind of the cool
Yeah.
thing to me is you can't find a lot of these recipes online. In fact, like there were a couple of people who are like, I found some recipes online. I found this one and this one and this one. I found this like really interesting ham mousse and a frozen jello salad. And I was like, what website did you get those from? They're like, it's from your website. So like I was like, yeah, I know. There's really not much out there on the internet, which is pretty incredible. There was one site that used to exist that I can still access through the Internet Archive, but they tore it down. But that was basically it in terms of all these old recipes outside of the presidential library. So you gotta like go thrifting. I also get like gifts from people. They'll send random old cookbooks that have like a recipe or two in there. And sometimes they'll just find a gem. I have this cookbook that I got that was mostly not famous people contributing or anything. And then
Right.
randomly, there's like Nikki Haley, who ran for president and, was a politician. But Nikki Haley was in there because for fundraisers, parents
Yeah.
will be like, well, a friend of a friend knows Nikki Haley, or a friend of a friend, knows like Hillary Clinton. Let's see if we can get her to contribute a recipe as a fundraiser for the school. And then they think no one cares about it and no one will find it. And then I find it 10 years later.
Yeah, and that's the thing with those, like I said, those church cookbooks is,
Mm-hmm.
it's just the congregation throwing in recipes. So I'm sure there's a lot of that out there too. And unfortunately, Iowa only has the distinction of one president who never even claimed the state after he left it, and that's of course Herbert Hoover. So and you did a cooking, and you can tell that he didn't stick with a lot of the Iowa themes
Left that
when
behind. Yep. No respect for his roots there at all. I think it's always so interesting to see like I did Benjamin Harrison recently and people were like, "Oh yeah, there's that like Indiana, you can tell with all the corn and everything else."
yeah.
Nothing for Hoover. It's just like purely like get me to the fancy New York style like lobster and whatever else.
Yeah, and what's crazy is Iowa still kind of said, I mean, I can't tell you where it's at because it's been years since I've seen it, but they still have like his birth home and museum and everything else like that. And, so, but it is what it is. To be honest, if I didn't live here, I probably wouldn't move here either. So, whatever. But, um, it, and to be honest, probably a lot of the foods from Iowa are simple. Corn and pork are the two main things out of here, so which isn't bad. I love pork, and which
Those are
again sucks.
two great things. Yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong with either of those things. Those are
I,
staples.
I'm going to give you a secret here, so don't tell anybody outside
All
of
right.
just us. I don't like corn,
Whoa, you picked a bad time and place to be alive.
and it's not
Corn.
so much that I don't like corn. We had it a lot when I was a kid. I just I don't know. It's got an all right flavor. I hate the whole corn on a cob feel and mess, and
You
so
don't
I
like to floss for 25 minutes after dinner?
no, no, I'd rather not deal with it, and it's got an alright flavor when I can throw it's kinda like me and tomatoes. I'm not a big tomato person, but if I can throw it in something, if I can mix it in something, then I can enjoy it a little bit better, but I'm not a big fan of that stuff. And corn's the same way, which is I had a doctor one time that goes, "Well, you need to eat more vegetables," and I'm not talking corn, and I said, "I don't like corn anyway, so we're good on that one." And she just kinda looked at me like you just did, "Well, you're I can go down the street and we got a cornfield right there, and I could probably pick my weight of it, and it's like I'm good.
Yeah, maybe it's just being around it too much, because like I feel like if I ate too much, like I ate too many Cheez-Its and Fritos for like a
Yeah,
certain period of time when I was a kid, and now like someone offers me a bag of Fritos, I'm like, I think I'm just done with that. I don't know, like overdid it. So maybe
yeah.
maybe a little bit of that if you grew up around it.
And I find that I've done that a lot over the years with foods. Like now, I'll cook something up, and or my parents will cook something and said, "Do you want some of this?" And it's like, "No." And they'd be like, "Well, you used to love this." Like, "Yeah, but when you have it every other week or
Yeah.
every so often, it's like, no, I'm good. I'll come up with my own thing." But so I do want to get into this one because I think this has been the most impressive one that I've seen, and I know you've done a lot of them, and you still got a lot more to go. But the William Howard Taft video that you did, and just to let people know, this was 8,200 calories. And you even said it in the video. This is like more calories than a person would eat in like 3 to 5 days, depending on meal sizes and stuff like that. How were you able? And I know you said that you didn't finish a steak and like part of a piece of salmon, but how are you able to get through that and not like pass out from exhaustion?
I mean, you can see if you look like not even that closely at the video, you're like, is he just sweating for like half of these shots? And yes, I am. I got meat sweats going on. My body's working hard to like metabolize and digest all of that. It was a true challenge. I knew it was going to be hard. I knew it was going to be
Yeah,
difficult. I knew it would also sort of be like a throwback to like Thanksgiving. I used to be a little bit bigger, so I lost like 65, 70 pounds or
yeah,
so. And I can still, so two things are true after like, being that size and being this size. I can still put it away if I have to. I can still eat food and a lot of it if I have to. And two, I still sweat like I did back then too. So like, and I'm in California too, and I still get like big guy sweats. I don't know what it is, but I still have that. And so that was on full display for this one. I never fasted before, like on purpose, or like I just forgot to eat for half a day. Like that's not in my life. But that next day, I truly like didn't feel hungry. I just felt full up until maybe like 2 or 3 p.m. the following day, and I had finished eating at like 8:45, I think, the night before. And I decided I was like, I first started to feel a little bit hungry at like 3 o'clock the next day, and I was like, I'm just gonna see when I feel really hungry, and that was at like 6 p.m. And I still didn't eat until it had been like 25 hours because I just wanted to see. And then I was like, well, I might as well. I've never fasted for longer than like 16 hours by accident, so yeah, I might as
right.
well push it to a full day. That was incredibly hard. I don't know how he got things done. Just spending like 4 hours a day eating, like 4.5 hours a day eating. It's wild.
Well, and like I said, I'm a bigger guy. I'm about 6'1", 390. I used to be a little bit bigger. I have dropped. I used to be 430, and I dropped down to 390. Well, actually, I dropped, but again, that's a long story. I don't think in my life I've ever hit 8,200 calories in a meal. And I know he was smaller than I am, comparative. Back then weights and today's weights are kind of weird when it comes to things where people, when they hit that certain weight, look like they were, balloons. Whereas I have people tell me that they can't believe I'm at the weight I am because I hold it well. And when I saw that you were going through these meals, it's like, this is insane. One, how do you get stuff done? And two, where are you putting it?
At a certain point, I was asking that very thing. I was like, is this going to go somewhere? Is it just going to like line up all the way up to a certain point where like you just like I started to think of my body as like, is it just a tube? I don't know. Like it feels like just putting food into a tube, and at some point, like, oh, tube's full. That's it. You can't put anything else in there. And I did hit that point with that final steak. I was looking at the steak. I was like, there's no chance. Like I can't even get through this last bite of salmon. There's not a chance I can do the steak. There's no way. If I want to finish because I still had to eat the fruit pie afterwards for
Yeah.
dessert, and other and other elements too. because every single meal was like a full on like spread, And so I was like, I'll come back to the steak, which was a lie to myself. I'll come back to the steak after the dessert because I wanted to at
3
least
days
try
later.
everything. Yeah, right. Like, man. So I I don't know where it all went. 8,200 calories for me is like 3.5 days worth of food, and the next day I didn't eat too much at all, except a big old thing of nachos, I think, in a burrito, and after the fast broke. But man, it took me a few days to like recover fully from
Right.
that day of eating. Is an impressive. He was an impressive eater, and he ate well. That's the thing. Like
Yeah.
food was good, just too much at every single turn.
And if people haven't seen the video, what was it? You did 7 or 8 different types of meats,
Yeah, I think
and
it clocked out at 9 technically, with like the chicken stock for broth and like veal knuckles that went into the turtle soup. That's a weird.
yeah.
That whole thing just sounded very strange. Veal knuckles in my turtle soup, and the possum. Obviously, it was a lot of
Well,
weird
and
meat.
and that's where I was getting at was the possum. Now, me being the country hick that I am, obviously there's a lot of things that we eat around here that, a lot of people probably wouldn't. I never had possum because my dad grew up as a hunter, and he always believed, and again, because of his parents and the time that they grew up with, you didn't hunt unless you were going to eat it. So that was always a rule. So you didn't hunt it unless you ate it. And dad did possum, and he said it was the worst meat he's ever had. Well, outside of muskrat. He had muskrat too, and it was the same
Ooh.
way, and he said it was one of the worst he ever had, so I never had it. And you said kind of the same thing that my dad said about the meat. It's like a greasy, weird consistency, and yeah, so how were you able to choke that down, on top of the other calories?
Yeah, I mean, I was very excited about it. I had never tried possum before. My dad also was a hunter, is a hunter still. He's a bow hunter, so just like primitive bows,
Yeah.
like goes out, chops down a tree, builds a bow out of it, makes his own arrows and all that stuff. So I grew up in this. When I grew up eating weird meats, it's kind of like I don't think I like read that way, like I'm in California, I'm on like
Yeah.
TikTok and stuff, but my bones are kind of like in that rural Pennsylvania. I got some hick to me for sure, because I'm like, oh yeah, I grew up eating like barbecued raccoon burgers and stuff like that. I really like them.
Yeah.
Possum was greasy and kind of stringy, and it felt like so easy to like. And I roasted it, but with a lid and everything too, and it's still just like any bit of liquid just left. I feel like maybe next time I don't know what I'm talking about. next time I just endeavor to eat a little possum, I would braise it or something to try to keep it a little softer, because it was tough and not fun to get through. But I don't know if it's the worst meat I've ever tried either. It's up there. It's not nearly as good as raccoon or squirrel, or you know honestly, like beaver is even better than that, I think. So I don't know. I'm more interested. I want to hear what other Iowa delicacies you've had.
Well, I've had rabbit, and that's a pretty good meat. I didn't have it prepared well. For some reason, my aunt decided to throw it in the crock pot with like cream of mushroom soup, and it, it,
Yeah.
the meat was good, but it was just a weird thing with it. I will be honest, I haven't had a lot of exotic stuff because my dad got burnt hunting, so when I started growing up, it was to the point where he doesn't wanna hunt with a rifle, he'd rather hunt with a camera. So he didn't, he
Mm.
kinda lost that edge of wanting to kill an animal just to kill an animal. So we I get certain things, like I've had like emu. We have elk farms out here, so I do get elk once in a while. Um, I used to go to one of the towns about an hour or so away had Civil War reenactments. So we would get like gator and frog legs and stuff like that through the reenactment. So I've had stuff like that, but the big thing around here, because we have a huge population, is deer
Yep.
and the whitetail. I've not had anything but whitetail because we've been pretty. That's our species here, and here in Iowa, but pheasant. I do remember having pheasant, and then I've had wild. We have populations of wild turkey around here too, so I've had the wild turkey. So I haven't quite had the exoticness that you seem to be saying that you had from the Pennsylvania, but I've had a few of my own, and some of them were just like, no, I probably not touch this ever again. But some of them, like the elk, and if
Mm,
I can get somebody to get me some rabbit, because like I said, we just don't hunt anymore, so I'll munch down on some of that stuff. But the emu was nasty. I don't ever want to touch that again. Gator is pretty good. I wasn't big on the frog legs. I know it's gonna sound weird, but it was too fishy. And
mhm.
it was just like you just got this weird fish flavor with it, and it was like a weird consistency to it, and I was like, "No, it's not for me." Now my dad loves it, so, it's a different of palates, but yeah, I mean, squirrels big around here. My dad said that when he was a kid, they would bring in lots of different meats like rabbit and deer and all that, and grandma would package it and throw it in the freezer. But if they brought home a mess of squirrel, that was what they were having for supper because that was one of her favorite meats. So if I can find somebody to go squirrel hunting with or somebody to get me some squirrel, that would be that's probably my next meal. But
That's mine too. Very soon, I have two squirrels in the freezer right now because when I had my dad send out the possum, which he caught for me, very much the same ethos of like, he only hunts to eat and use pretty much every single thing from the animal as well. So like,
yeah,
great, like he's gonna use the hide, he's gonna use the sinew to like wrap arrows and whatever else.
yep.
And then he sent out the possum, and there was more room. And I was like, you fit a couple of squirrels in there. So I knew it was going to happen at some point because I had done the research on some previous presidents. 1800s especially, squirrels were pretty common
Yeah.
at the White House for meals. So I'm excited to integrate that in the next couple of weeks.
No, I'm having like a Mandela effect because that's another reason why I was going through your videos to catch up because I was like, I know he did the possum, but I swore he had like a squirrel soup and I couldn't
Ooh.
find it.
I might
So
have mentioned it though because it's coming up very soon, very very
okay,
soon. Yeah,
okay,
squirrel soup
that
is
could be
like
it.
it's in the next month. I'm doing squirrel soup.
So I'm really interested to see what you say with that because one thing, and not just my dad, but my mom's stepdad, w- you know, th- grew up in Minnesota, so they did a lot of, and you don't even want to know how they used to skin the squirrels out there because it was, or up there because it was just, cut it down, step on the tail, rip it out, and and he said we'd do that all day. It's like, but that was, from what I understand, that's some of the best meat you can have as long as it's cooked right. You can overcook it, you
Mhm.
can do that stuff to it, but as long as you cook it right, it's some of the best stuff you ever had. Now it's a pain because the squirrel's so small, so trying to get the
Yep.
meat off the bone. But
Yeah, this will be
um,
fun.
so not only do you do presidents, but you do like Congress people and senators and first ladies. I do have to ask you this because it looked like at the end of the video you were feeling it pretty good, but the whole Betty Ford diet.
Oh yeah.
Did you feel like you had to go through rehab just after finishing that one day as her?
It's so funny for some people. I think like three vodka tonics in a day is like nothing. Like, yeah, great, whatever. Like if you space them out, who cares? For me, like I don't drink too much. Just by having like a gigantic bar and having a background and working at a distillery and knowing how to make cocktails and stuff. Three vodka tonics for me with like not that much food behind it. I was definitely feeling it, which is also the point. Like the point of the series for me, it's out of this curiosity, it's out of fun. I just like it's so fun to me to do. But I knew that like her state was kind of slurry, on most days because she was struggling with it. I like am very fortunate enough not to struggle with alcoholism or addiction or anything like that, and I didn't want to like add, benzos or like opioids into the mix. I'll smoke some cigars for Ulysses S. Grant. I'm not going to do benzos for this
You didn't wanna do
show.
the full immersion of her skin.
Yeah, I have my like limits and lines, like So I was like, how do I get there? And I was like, you know what? Maybe the vodka tonics will just do it. And they totally did. They totally got me there. At the end of the day, just kind of buzzing lightly along as the day wrapped up, and felt pretty close to how Betty Ford must have felt at that time. I think
And
so.
I have to say, you looked like you enjoyed it all the way through once you hit the end of the video. So
That was pretty fun.
uh, have you found that there's any foods that you just like you balked at that you were like, I don't even want to touch that because it's something that it's got an ingredient that you don't like, and you're just like, I don't want to mess with it, or has there been anything that you're just flat out like, I really don't want to go through the process of this?
Mm. So, I mean, the first thing I can't, so I'm allergic to carrots, so I can't do anything with carrots
Okay.
in it. So I have to like kind of sub in parsnips or other weird things for those recipes. So I try to avoid anything with carrots in it from the get go. So I don't have to like tweak it too much, try to stay authentic. Other than that, I mean, I don't like ketchup. That's like one of the few things,
Really?
foods. Yeah, it's one of the few foods I just do not care for, really.
And you're from Pennsylvania with the
I know
Heinz?
it's so. Hey, it's like you with the corn, like
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Like, how do you not like ketchup? I had a friend who lived in the Heinz factory when they converted it into apartments, and I can't. I just don't really like ketchup. I appreciate what it does out there in the world, and like I'm happy for Heinz. I don't know, but ketchup's just not my thing. I don't like it on burgers, fries, eggs,
Wow.
really anything, and especially didn't like it on Richard Nixon's pile of cottage cheese. So I always get a little like sad to see ketchup on the menu, and excited at the same time, because to me the intensity of the experience is the fun part. Like Taft was so fun for me because it was hard, it was a challenge, and like eating cottage cheese and ketchup, like this is disgusting, this is going to make people laugh so hard, and that's like a huge part of it for me. So the stuff that gets me the most worried also gets me the most excited, because I know people are going to have as much fun with it as I do. I will say that like some of the stuff that intimidates me to actually work with are like very old baking. It's
Yeah,
hard.
yeah.
The recipes are a little vague. They expect you to know because they're like 200 years old. Some of them. I'm looking at this cake that I am planning on doing maybe for next year to time with the 250th of the United States,
Okay.
and it's Martha Washington's cake, but it requires like 40 eggs, which is so
Whoa.
much money in eggs.
Yeah,
And
no kidding.
I'm just afraid of like blowing it basically and making a huge mistake. Like, all right, I put like all this money into something that will be more expensive than my wedding cake, and it just like doesn't rise or something because I didn't know to put one specific ingredient there. So those kind of worry me sometimes, like the really old baking, because I'm not. It's my like biggest knowledge gap there. Like I'm not an expert baker. I'm getting better, but I'm not an expert. And 1700s cooking is it's different than modern recipes, where modern cookbooks, they tell you what salt to use. Like, oh, use this
Yeah.
brand of salt and
Yeah.
this brand. Back then, they're like, brown it in an oven of moderate temperature for a time. You're like, okay, all right, great, here we go, winging it.
Is that like a three-tier cake? Or 40 eggs seems like a lot. Uh, I
Yeah.
can't even that would be like Jesus. Yeah,
It's not an
money-wise,
omelet, I swear. Like it just sounds like you're like, yeah, so you're making like just an omelet for an army or something, but it's a cake. The amounts are all in like bushels and stuff too. Like it's gonna be, I'm pretty sure, absolutely massive. I don't know, and I need to like dig in. That's why it's for next year, because I'm like, I'll
yeah,
approach
yeah.
it next year. You know what I mean? More resources, maybe even a bigger production budget or something. But I think it's very, very large too. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to make it, like probably cut together pieces or something to make it as large as it's supposed to be, which is probably half the size of this small dinner table that I'm sitting at.
Yeah, that's nuts. I I'm still 40 friggin' eggs. That's gonna be a Costco run, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. For everything. I mean, the eggs, the flour. When you're talking about like, you know, add 2 cups of baking powder, you're like, oh my god, this is insane. Like, there's no way.
And what's weird is I had a friend of mine, well, it was kinda like a surrogate mom for my dad, but she makes one of the best meatloafs you could ever have. A meatloaf that just amazing. So you'll sit there and ask her, "Well, what's your recipe or what's it?" Oh, well, I just, feel whatever I've got and whatever I feel like, I just kind of throw a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So it's kind of the same way where it's like, and I've seen a lot of old recipes because at one time I love to cook and I do like to bake a little bit and I like to come up with my own stuff. So every once in a while I'll find, I think one year it was I was hoping to make matzah just out of the blue. I was like, let's try this, and well, you just throw a little bit of that and a little bit of this. So I was like, okay, just sitting there, and it didn't turn out for nothing for me, but it's amazing how they used to do things and it was still like edible.
Yeah, yeah, they just knew they and the recipes assume that you knew enough, right? They're like, well, I don't need to
Yeah.
tell you to add salt. So like now you do, you do need to tell people to add salt in the recipes. They expect much more of you as a baseline in those olden days, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of times, the recipes were just, word of mouth. Somebody
Mhm.
would show up one day. Well, that was a good thing. Well, what can you? So they had to give the most generic answers that they could because you didn't have a pen and paper ready at hand to scribe this stuff down. So, but what president or politician are you really that you haven't done yet, or that you're really looking forward to taking a deep dive into?
Hmm. So I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited to try Winston Churchill next month, August.
Okay, that's gonna be a
Grant
lot
was
of cigars again.
Yeah, I might, because I think I might not do all of them on camera, or I might have to like, you know, I gotta relax. Like it's just so much cigar smoking. I took 4 showers that day because I would come inside and be like, I smell like a humidor just lit on fire, and I have like people in my house who also have to live with it, you know. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll try to do as much of the smoking, but like starting the day with like champagne and stuff, it sounds hilarious. So really looking forward to Winston Churchill. He's also like one of my most asked for politicians. Other than that, I think like going back through history, I am excited to get to some of the founding fathers next year too. Thomas Jefferson, like famously culinary, right? Um,
Macaroni and cheese
yes, exactly. Like there's an ice cream,
and ice
like
cream, yep.
versions of it. There's so many different things that he popularized and kind of brought to the U.S.
Didn't he
Or
also do
that
something it wasn't quite a french fry, but it's something that we kind of view as close to a french fry as possible for what they
ooh,
did back then?
I'd have to look into that. Like I really do. Like I know a little bit about the founding fathers, but because I like go back further through time
Yeah,
as the
yeah.
series goes, I'm excited to like discover that. But he has so many different recipes. Monticello, like his website for his library is chock full of them too. So great resource. I'm excited. I want to visit Monticello. Maybe like time a trip there with the release of that episode. And again, like right around the 250th, it'll be really kind of cool to see all those things come together. So I'm excited to go back and do that. And then I really want to get to. I might have to do it sooner, but I'm excited to try Zachary Taylor, who
Okay.
died from eating. You would think that Taft is the guy who died from eating out of all the presidents, but Zachary Taylor died legitimately from food, like
Yeah.
from eating too many cherries with iced milk, and he died from it. Like that is the president died from like milk and cherries. I got any love squirrel, so like that'll be a squirrel day, and I'll get to eat like 100 cherries and a safe amount of milk. I guess I'm not gonna like risk it, but also I don't know what the combination is. That was like, well, you eat you know what they say, eat too many cherries and milk, you're dead.
Yeah,
Um,
I
I'm very
remember the
interested to try.
story and just kinda crazy, but, let me know. You can come out here, I got a cherry tree that I planted several years ago
Oh
that
wow,
blooms, so and then
that's
if
the
you
best of the
do
summer.
well, Jimmy Carter, you've already done Jimmy Carter, I got a peach tree on the other side that's full of peaches, so, you
Oh,
come out here, you can
that if I get to if you're in Iowa still, and then if I get to Hoover's site, or something like that, I'll have to pay a visit, get some peaches off the tree.
Yeah, I was matter of fact, we had some bad storms a couple weeks ago, and I was driving by and I just happened to look out by the tree and I saw it just all splayed out and I was like, "Damn it, the storm destroyed my tree." And no, I went back there and it's just so full of peaches that it's holding the branches down, but they're
Wow.
just not ripe yet to be ready to be picked. So, I had
That's
my
weird.
dad looking at it, and we're trying to figure a way to hold it up so it doesn't break the branches off. But yeah, I've got a cherry tree and a peach tree that I planted probably 10 years ago, and they're full bloom. So
Wow.
you can have as many of them as you want as long as you come get them.
I'd be happy to.
um, let's see. I did write down a couple of questions as I was preparing. We kind of covered the weirdest recipe so far. Well, actually, no, we didn't, because I think the one that I know of that could be your answer is the Martha Washington lettuce pie.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
excited. I'm excited to redo that one and make it delicious.
so outside of that and the possum one, what has been the weirdest one that you've done so far?
The weirdest one. Hmm. The yeah. More
I know you've done
recently,
so many.
I know it's tough to pick just one. More recently, I think man, no, I got to go back to this. There's this pea and peanut salad, and it looks so beautiful, but it's a Jello salad, and it's basically mustard flavored Jello. So like mustard, whipped cream, a couple other ingredients, and it makes a mustard flavored Jello, and then in the center of it, you mix together mayonnaise and Spanish peanuts and green peas, and you're supposed to like eat it all in one scoop.
That's
It's it's bad. It's not good. It's very gross, and it's also just like texturally a nightmare, and like but beautiful looking. So it's I did another one too. It was like a blue cheese mold. And it was so pretty. It looked like this like panna cotta or something. But then you take a bite, you're like, oh, this is the worst version of blue cheese I've ever tasted in my entire life. Like even with buffalo wings, I don't know if I'd eat it this way. So it's
I
that
don't know how you'd make that better.
I don't know if I can improve the blue cheese one, but I am excited to improve like the lettuce tart for sure from Martha Washington, and I really want to improve, although it was delicious, her artichoke pie too. Like there's something there with like the vegetables and desserts that she was obsessed with, I guess. But I do think there's a there. Like they could taste really good, or at least be a little less strange looking, like along the way.
You know, one of the breads that I grew up with, sweet bread grew up with, was zucchini bread. So I mean, it's possible. Uh,
Oh,
it,
love zucchini bread. Huge fan of zucchini bread. Like
and
that's
and even though you're allergic to it, one of my favorite cakes is a carrot cake. So
I don't know what it tastes like. I know what it smells like. It smells like cream cheese and spices and stuff. But I think that's the last carrot thing I ate when I was like 3 or 5 or something like that. And so I don't remember much from it except that it does smell good. So yeah,
yeah, you know what's weird? uh, Just thinking about you being allergic to carrots is my dad's allergic to cucumbers,
cucumbers really
and but he can eat pickles.
cucumbers, but can eat pickles.
Yeah, nobody's been able to figure it, and there's something in the pickling process that takes whatever it is he's allergic to out. But yeah, he'll blow up like a blowfish if he eats cucumbers, but he can eat pickles all day long.
So interesting. I
Um,
yeah, I could. I mean, I haven't tested out if I could eat a pickled carrot. That's like probably
well,
not worth it.
I'm not a doctor, so don't take my advice on it. So you know, but so has there been anything that you've done so far that has become like a regular staple for you now, that you were like, this is just amazing that now I've got to have it once, like once every 2 weeks or something like that?
There's two things that I've done. One through the Eating Like America series. So that's a series where I eat like someone, just like an ordinary person from every district in the United States, all 435. So I got a long way to go. But that's been so cool to see like how other people eat in a given day. I was surprised that everyone else was also interested in that because I wanted to know. I was like, well, how do you eat? How does like everyone just go about their day? The Cantonese scrambled eggs, I have gone back to like 3 or 4 times. So good.
Okay.
And it's kind of like this weird like layer. It only takes like 30 seconds to make the scrambled eggs this way. It adds like MSG and a little bit of sugar and a little bit of salt and pepper and white pepper, maybe a touch of soy sauce if I remember correctly. And then you do this layering, basically like quick layering of the scrambled eggs, like the cooked part over the raw part, cooked part over the raw part. It makes this like folded stack of eggs.
Okay.
They The texture is amazing. It tastes different. It's like elevated from a regular scrambled egg. There's no cheese in it or anything, but it almost like tastes like there's something extra in there, that like umami, whatever it is. And man, I've gone back and done those like 3 or 4 times. They also look like they're visually impressive looking, so I like make them for other people. And then flannel cakes. Flannel cakes from Ulysses S. Grant. I made them a day later. I was like, these are so good that one day afterwards, I was like, I want to make some more flannel cakes. And that the people are begging for the recipe for it. But I'll tell you that basically the key to flannel cakes is separating the eggs and whipping those egg whites so they get nice and fluffy. Like they're twice as fluffy as regular pancakes, and they're delicious.
So it's just basically a normal pancake, just separated eggs and whipped whites.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You got to be careful when you're folding in the whites; so it doesn't just like crush all the air that you've created. But they're not that hard to make, and the results were fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I love a good pancake, so why
Me
not?
too. Yeah, why not make them just that much better, basically, like every single time?
And see, I thought I was doing good with mine. Is most recently I wanted to do like a banana pancake, but I didn't have a
Mm.
banana, so I went and got banana pudding, and I mixed the instant pudding into the pancake, and just
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, I weirdly have leftover banana pudding mix in my pantry right now because I was making it for today's episode that I'm releasing. So now I know what to do with that. Amazing.
Well, if you want some good recipes from myself, just go over to ohanapackers.org and I put some recipes up over there. I've got
Nice.
my famous breaded tenderloin that I do, and then and like I said, I got into what you kinda are doing, except for I'm not doing, like, TikTok videos and stuff like that, but I would start creating my own recipes, and I've got, like, some chicken strips over there, and I've got breaded tenderloins, and there's a couple other things, and then, we have had a few people over the last couple of years who have put their own recipes up over there. Maybe we can get a Bennett-inspired recipe put up on the website at some
Ooh,
point.
I like it. Love that idea. That's great. I'll have to check it out. Sounds pretty good. I love a breaded tenderloin.
And I will give you the key. And this is the one thing that pisses me off the most when it comes to people making tenderloins, is they think they need to take a tenderloin and pound the shit out of it and make it super rail thin,
Hmm.
and that'll make it taste more like cardboard than an actual tenderloin, because you're getting more of the breading and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
you want to pound the tenderloin, but you don't want to make it to where it's like paper thin.
Mm,
My tenderloins are usually about yay big, and people aren't going to see this because this isn't going to be a video, but probably a couple inches in diameter, and then you just bread the shit out of it. And like I said, I got the recipe up. I don't want to go through the whole recipe step by step, but
I'm about
got
to
to get
check it
people
out.
over to the website. But that's the one thing that uh, cooking faux pas for me is to pound the hell out of a tenderloin to make it as flat as possible. There's a local joint that claim to have the best tenderloins, and that's all they do is they just pound the hell out of it, and it's a huge tenderloin, but it's cardboard.
Yeah, I'm sure it tastes. I'm fried cardboard. Breaded cardboard isn't bad, but it's like you could do it
Yeah,
better.
I would rather have the taste of the pork more than I would the breading, even though I do bread the hell out of my stuff.
Mm.
But um, what have you learned most from the meals you've made so far?
I've learned a couple of things. I think a we probably need term limits in Congress. Some of these folks are like, my favorite lunch is horseradish salad with Jello in it. And like, but you're alive now and still in Congress, like, or you're. I think of Chuck Grassley, who's a senator,
Yes,
your guy, right? Yeah,
yeah.
91. He's 91. I mean, when I'm 91, like, I don't want to be working at 91. Why do they want to be working at 91? And I did his Superfish, which required at
I
some point.
just watched it this morning.
Yeah, so many
I
minutes in the
don't know where
microwave.
the hell he grew up at, but that is I first
Not in
in Iowa,
Iowa.
I don't know where the hell he got cod because
Fish,
that
I
should
know, right? That's
it
it.
should have been catfish or striper or something, but cod. he grew up with a little bit of money.
Clearly did, because like you don't go to Iowa, and I would assume like we're known for our seafood. Like in a landlocked place, yeah, you try not to get seafood. You get like the local seafood.
Yeah.
So I think term limits, that's definitely one. Second one is that there's some truly unhinged recipes from these politicians, and maybe they're not just like us. And I think the third one, like as I go further back in time, was just like seeing how much time like was spent at meals versus more modern presidents. You could see like the growth, especially of the presidency over time, where like they used to dine for like 4 or 5 hours a day, and like it was more casual. And you could see as the country grew, the responsibilities grew, and it's just like as quick as you can get, like peanut butter and jelly sandwich, bowl of cereal. Like
Yeah.
it became much more condensed, and there are less lavish dinners outside of the like state dinners, which I don't eat like the state dinners because that's like they're always like 15 course menus,
Yeah.
right? I eat like they do on any given day because they're paying for their own meals otherwise, right? So I eat like them on their average day when they're not at a state dinner, and it just has become so much less really over the years as the job has gotten more stressful, more difficult. The country's gotten literally larger with population and with geography, and so it's really interesting to go back. And I started to like notice it really in the like 19 really Hoover right around there. We're like, oh, they start to like the menus just get massive. Like it's
Yeah.
so long. I was cooking way more often. I used to do these on like a half day, and now I'm like, if I'm eating like a president now, like moving back from like Herbert Hoover further into history, it's a full day. It's a full day of cooking. It's a full day of prep. It's a full day of eating and editing.
Yeah, it's something else because back then that was, well, I guess after the whole McKinley thing, they kind of, well, maybe it was a little bit more for, maybe it was Lincoln assassination, but they used to actually let the American people just come in. So, they had to kind of prep for that too. And, just some of these recipes. That's the one thing about the movie Lincoln that was really super accurate, was that, people could just come into the White House.
Oh
They called
yeah,
it the people's house for a reason, because people could just come in. And now it's so, and obviously so, but now it's so locked down that, you have to have like passes and reservations and stuff to get into it. But you had to be kind of prepared for anybody just to stop by. and
yeah.
and so it's amazing. But when you're, so this is going to be looking to the future, and obviously, there's only so many presidents and so many politicians that you can do from the United States. And I know you've touched into some of the, I think you did like Justinian the First, and some of, and George the Third, and that. But where do you go from here? What's your next step? Are you planning like a different, once you get through all the presidents, are you gonna work around it and maybe go back to more vice presidents? Or what's the future hold for Cooking with Congress?
The future is like it's so exciting to me right now. I'm in this phase where I'm trying to grab on to every single like fun, fascinating idea that comes to me. And so I'm so excited to do a cookbook, very, get that in the works. I'm excited to get to the end of the presidents, and I've still got a year until I,
Yeah.
end on George Washington, right? And there's still so many figures outside of the presidents to go into with politics. The nice part is there's, 8,000 recipes sitting over there on my library part two. I can't actually fit them all in the back bar here. And so I've got tons of recipes throughout history, and so many strange ones. And more politicians are being elected every single 2 year period. So it's kind of never ending in terms of that. And then I'm so excited to go international as well. So Winston Churchill will be the first one of like a more modern sense. But I've done, yeah, Princess Diana, Meghan Markle for the like subscriber only series,
Right, right.
basically the eating like royalty. But yeah, I want to eat like all the other like PMs out there and presidents of other countries. And that'll be a new challenge and newly exciting. I have been so like focused on the U.S. because U.S. history is of particular interest to me, and so I'll probably go back and still dig up other figures. And there's room for me to eat like lots of other different people. Like people have asked if I would ever do like athletes.
I was
DK
just gonna
Metcalf.
say,
DK
and
Metcalf gets so many requests because he eats like just 50 bags of Skittles a day or something crazy. Michael Phelps, I get requested a lot. People are like, could you try these things? And to me, that's so fun to get into it's all experiential, you know. Like I'm not a data scientist. I'm not like, well, this
yeah,
is exactly the number. Like it's fun for me to do it and be like, what did this feel like? This felt insane, like most of the time. And so I follow the fun wherever I go. And in the meantime, I'm excited to like be working with some presidential libraries upcoming and a few other big collaborators, get this cookbook going. And weirdly, I've found that people are entertained by it, but also learning from it. So I've had like educational institutions reach out and be like, oh, maybe we can put together, you know, like a course module for connecting kids to history in this new way. So like eighth graders out there, like history sucks, it's boring. And they're like, well, what about if it's on TikTok? And they get excited about it. So teachers are using the series in classrooms already, and so to formalize that would be really cool, and it'd be a fun way to get people involved. Because I would have killed for something like this when I was a kid, to be able to like see a new way of thinking about history. And so, yeah, there's 55 things on the horizon right there.
I'm a big history guy. One of the few classes that I did good in school was history and all that stuff. And matter of fact, my off-season, off-topic episodes, I started out talking to a member of the Billy the Kid Coalition, and he does the Chasing Billy podcast. So, I'm a big Old West person, and I love history and stuff like that. I do I agree with the athlete part of it because I even sent in the recommendation when I was emailing with your assistant and that maybe do a Vince Lombardi type thing.
Oh, yeah.
And and uh and I even did a little bit of research on that, and it's like, man, I don't think I could it's because he was another one that he spent so much more time working that his meals didn't like really coincide with the amount of work that he did.
Hmm.
Just off the top of my head, I know for breakfast, it was very common to see him just have a cup of coffee, toast, and a bowl of cold cereal, and that was it.
Yeah, kind of a busy man's classic breakfast back in the 50s,
And then
60s.
and I was really hoping that I could get you to do this because there's one recipe that I found that is his that supposedly he served on occasions. It's called deviled ham, and it had a really unique, like, I don't know if you want to call it like a marinade or whatever that would lather on it and bake it, and that was his favorite meal and whatever. If I can find the recipe again, I'll shoot it over an
Wow.
email for you. But I think that would be interesting to start doing. Once you get through all your stuff, obviously you've got a whole lot of uh uh different politicians. What we're at 47 president or 47th president, so we're at what 44 total or whatever it is that you're going to be able to do. And then all the politicians, like you said, we're seeming to elect new ones every other election cycle, so you're
Yeah,
pretty
so
set on that.
there's lots there to do, but like I always just yeah, I think constantly about like what happens when I run out of all the most famous politicians, right, or whatever else, and what's next. And truly, it's just what's fun and what's interesting to me. I'm very lucky to be able to have that when you're running your own thing, right? And you can kind of be like, hey, like I want to do this. Are fans on board with this? And I think people would probably be on board as long as I'm still also continuing in the tradition of whatever I've promised from the beginning too. Like you got to be able to grow and change. And I grew up a hardcore NFL football fan, and so I think it'd be really fun to explore those things, and because it's authentic to who I am, and the diets are pretty crazy and different and distinctly American too, which again like focuses in on where a lot of my time and energy has been spent on like, well, what does this American diet look like from this year or this region or this office of the of the presidency.
Well, and if you get into the NFL one, just with your Steelers, you got like Terry Bradshaw who grew up in the Bayou that, you can imagine just what he ate on a daily basis. Or the one that I would be really interested in, because I still don't know if he's human or not, is Mike Tomlin, just because, he's so intense that I don't know if he even eats, if he just might absorb energies around him.
He feels like he might be one of those guys who like eats for fuel, and that's about it. Which is impressive. It's so different than the way that I eat normally. But man, if you get that much done and you're that successful, more power to you.
So, uh, I just got a couple more, and then we'll be good to let you go, because, like I said, I know you got stuff to do, and of course I got to go to work here in about an hour or so. But the coffee. How do you get a good night's sleep after consuming as much as you do?
Oh, I don't. Is the short answer. The long answer is that I know. I plan those days ahead of time. It's always on a Friday, so I know the next day. Like I don't have to get up early. I'm gonna be able to like sleep in a little bit. My wife is unbelievably kind and accommodating on those on those days, which it's happened like 3 or 4 times. Like, hey, just so you know, I'm gonna have to drink 9 to 12 cups of coffee today, so it's not
Or
going to be a great night's
15?
sleep. Or
Teddy
15,
Roosevelt?
Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah, come on, TR. I'll probably be having some coffee again for one of his other meals very soon. Excited to go up. I'm going up to Yosemite very, very soon to eat like he did for kind of what really the food and the meal that birthed the national park system in a way. And even though it was at night, he was drinking coffee. So I'll be having some 8 p.m. coffee around a campfire, which sounds pretty fun, honestly. But yeah, I just kind of suffer through a bad night's sleep and try to get my rest the next day, recover, and then an insane amount of water is really the answer too. Just I drink so much water in preparation, a lot of water afterwards. There's nothing really more you can do.
And I got to give you props on that, because I can't stand coffee. I absolutely, I love caffeine though. Don't get me wrong, I love caffeine, but I get mine more through tea, and I wish I could get a sponsorship out of it just as much as I drink as sparkling ice with caffeine. Um,
Sparkling ice with caffeine. Tell me
yeah.
more.
Oh, it's great stuff. It really is. Now it's must be popular around here, because every time I go to the store, it friggin' is sold out or whatever. So I've had to order cases in. But I love this stuff. It's 70 milligrams of caffeine in every thing, so I drink like 5 or 6 of them a day, man.
5 or 6 a day. Come on, sparkling ice. Sponsor this show. Sponsor Joe here. If I can get,
Um,
I'll get a sponsorship from like Jello and the I don't know some coffee company. You can get a sponsorship from Sparkling Ice. It sounds pretty good. It sounds right.
and that, or like I said, I'm a big tea drinker. I'll order like different teas from Amazon, and just the newest one that I got was it's the same company and same blend that was served on the Titanic. So
Whoa,
Thompson's tea. So that's
Thompson's.
been my newest one. I
Oh,
do like
so
Barry's
interesting.
Gold. So there you go. You
Thompson's
could
tea.
do disasters of, disaster foods.
I have like there's it's a weird space that exists on on social media where there's like a few of us who are cooking historical meals, in some
Yeah.
different respects, right? Max Miller is awesome. He's got Tasting History, a great YouTube show, and he's on social media as well. Really like Donnie Dodson, and he does Eats History, and so he focuses on like more ancient history and Roman recipes. It's super cool, and we all kind of play in the same pool essentially, but with a different our own personalities come through and a
Right.
different kind of take and different production value. But I always am careful to be like, okay, have they done that already? Because I don't want to cover like old ground or something else. I remember, I think Donnie did like the second class meal on the Titanic or something like that, and I was like, that's cool. So I would probably steer clear of disaster meals in terms of like producing something for Cooking with Congress, but also I want to try it. I mean, like I still want to eat it. I just may not make an episode about it.
Well, like I said, I don't know if it's true or not, but according to everything, that this is the same blend as the Titanic. So if you
Wow.
do decide to do it, It's Thompson's, and I just got it off Amazon. So, Amazon is great to get a lot of that stuff off of. Uh, I forgot what my last question was going to be, but do you, how do I want to phrase this? Never mind. It wasn't a big question anyway. I can't come up with it in my head, but uh, now I'm completely blanking because we went off the rails on it. But anyway, uh, we're at the hour 6 mark. So, like I said, we need to probably wrap up here in a minute. But, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? And, obviously we know what you're up to, but what's your drop schedule and where they can find you and how they can get a hold of you if they've got an interesting recipe and all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube at Cookin with Congress, no G in cooking, like old fashioned cooking. You can reach out, info at cookingwithcongress.com if you've got any ideas. If you want me to eat like you for a day, which has been such a fun series, Eating Like America series, it's for paid subscribers, just to kind of keep out the trolls and the insane diets, and to limit it a little bit. Because, man, otherwise I'd be eating like other people for like the next 25 years. um, but you can totally become one on Patreon or any of those other platforms I just mentioned. It's pretty easy to sign up there and just send me your day of eating, and I will add you to the big calendar. Still got lots of districts to go, 435, and we're through about 30 something. So tons of time, tons of districts, and it's a lot of fun for me.
Have you hit Iowa yet? I didn't pay attention to that. Have you hit Iowa yet?
I think we did. Let me see. I think Iowa's second. I believe we did already. Let me see. Or it's like upcoming. Iowa 2 is like coming to mind for some reason, and I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Iowa 2 is coming up very soon. So in the next several weeks, excitingly. Otherwise, no Iowa yet.
Okay, well, I'm gonna heavily critique that one when it comes through because I'm gonna call BS on the recipe if they put something in there that's not Iowa specific.
You're gonna call BS on there if it's corn in there. There's too much corn for me in here. It's gonna be incredibly authentic.
And I think the thing is people overestimate the amount of corn that is in an Iowa diet. So it would not surprise me if they put too much corn in there, then I'll know to call BS on something
Mm,
because then they're just kind of messing with you and say because there's nobody that eats that much corn here in Iowa. I don't
yep.
care what they say. But thank you for joining me again. It was a pleasure to get to talk to you. It was amazing to be able to get something scheduled in and fit it around both our busy schedules at the moment. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to everybody else who was a guest on the show who, came on and did this off-season, off-topic thing with me. It was a fun, you know, Bennett just said with the Cooking with Congress thing that, he tries not to trample over what other people have done. That's the same thing we were doing with the off season stuff. We were, there's only so much news going around during the off season that I didn't want to do the same stories as every other podcast. So this is what I decided to come up with. If you guys enjoyed it, hopefully we can do it again next year during the off season, have a better schedule laid out. Maybe get Bennett back next year, catch up with him, see what he's doing. Bennett, I hope we can also get you on during week eight and discuss the Steelers Packers game, see how that goes. But follow us on all the usual socials. Do go over to ohanapackers.org for our, recipes, articles by Carlos, merch. We got a ton of merch over there. I'm plugging away at Photoshop, trying to get things up. Go over, support the show. As Mike would say, go pack, go, and aloha.